Hello guys, good morning. Welcome to July 25th session. And we are pretty far from the Open, New York's Open, but I did want to analyze what happened a few minutes ago, which is what I was potentially expecting to happen. And let's just analyze London at midnight, where we had, well, midnight just traded below. We have, I don't know, I believe this was news, maybe. Got no idea why this happened specifically, but well, you have a sweep lower and a sweep higher. Then continues lower, sweeps low, and then aggressively it goes higher. We have 5-minute entries in these 5-minute fair value gaps more than entries in the lower time frames. And I saw this high. I saw that it respected it here. So for me, it was a little bit obvious that it could likely take that high to then continue lower, right? And that's what happened a few minutes ago. It did mitigate the high. Okay, wait, hold on. So just because of the low that was swept through London, I would have expected session or at least pre-New York to be bearish, right? Sorry, bullish, to continue with that move based on the fact that, well, it swept the low and then aggressively went higher. But of course, when we set a direction based on a run on sell side liquidity or buy side liquidity, usually we are going to be aiming at the next buy side or sell side liquidity, right? Run. So in this case, we had the sell side first, and then it went all the way up to that high. And as soon as it took that high, this is also important because it's not that it's just any high and any reaction. The high is taken and immediately you see aggression that in the meantime generates a fair value gap, right? Which is where we trade. So this is a 5-minute fair value gap, which I'll be paying attention to. And if we look into the 1 minute, we can see that it has a high here. That price could, as an example, run as buy side liquidity, mitigate the 5-minute POI, displacement lower, and a fair value gap to enter for. What could we be aiming for? Well, I wouldn't really go down to this low, to be fully honest, because it did take liquidity after all. So I don't really like aiming for lows or highs that have taken liquidity. So ideally, we're going just below this low, right? Because this low didn't really take liquidity or anything close to that. Ideally, right? I'm not gonna be trading this because I gotta wait for the open to trade. It's just something that I wanted to talk about and we'll analyze in the meantime. And I'm expecting a bearish week. Let's talk about that in the meantime. I'm expecting a bearish week due to, well, all that we've been having, but at the same time, what? Okay. I'm guessing this is the analysis. I don't know why it wasn't this. Yeah, okay. I'm not gonna read that thing. You can read it, pause it and read it. But basically, we've been quite bearish. Last week was entirely bullish, in my opinion. Retracement, it traded inside a fair value gap in the weekly time frame, in the daily time frame as well. We had a run of buy side liquidity on this high, this highs, and well, the lower time frames highs basically. Then we saw a little bit of aggression lower. The price could basically create or use as the, how do you say this, as potentially the high of the week, right? To just start going lower, or the high of the potential next bearish move, right? Going potentially below the slow and everything, right? So in my opinion, this move higher has already happened through the entire week because I was expecting price to go higher to then continue lower below the slow. Therefore, this could be the next move. But at the same time, if we look at this is the big 1.0000 level, right? The peg level, I think it's called, where it's just equal to $1. The euro is equal to $1. So as soon as price sweeps that level aggressively, I might add, you can see how here in the daily time frame we see 1 and 2 fair value gaps, right? So as an example, if the week began bearish, traded inside of this and in a session we see confluences to buy, then price going to all the way up here or at least above these highs is definitely a possibility, right? Which is something that I will consider for the entire week, right? But for now we only have confluences to sell until we actually get down to this area, right? So unless we actually get that, I'm not really going to be able to sell that much or to do much about the selling. But well, if it gets there, then great, you know, and gives me confluences, of course. Otherwise, there's really not much that I can do. So just wanted to say that I can trade that with the demo, I guess, just to test it out. But yeah, just want to do this little bit of an introduction. I'll be coming back on the open potentially, and it's really all that I wanted to say. All right, so we're getting pretty close to the open, and I wanted to analyze it a little bit. Well, I wanted to analyze what we could see through the session, because well, it's just a bit complicated at the time, right? So London swept the low aggressively and then immediately changed its direction higher, right? That direction has been respected so far, was respected through the entire, well, through the rest of London session, through pre-New York, although there was a retracement, but still respected something, probably 15-minute fair value gap to the left. Oh, well, this block that we have here. Right? Yeah, I guess we could call it that, this specifically. And we see the continuation higher. Phase one does the exact same thing, just continues higher. But we have to, it's just that we have two ways to see this, right? We have a random buy side liquidity. So phase one, random buy side liquidity, immediate change in direction, creating displacement in the 5-minute. And that gives me a really good opportunity to be looking for sells, right? We also have the fact that there's fair value gaps in here, also in the 15-minute, that basically price is now respecting. But yeah, sure, at the same time, we would be waiting for a 5-minute fair value gap to be created and then look for the entries. Something that I just saw is this tiny fair value gap in the 5, which, being fully honest, has been more than enough in other occasions, so why not consider it now? And okay, did not mean to open that. And price has reacted to that, creating a fair value gap here that could have been traded. And we also had a market shift, tiny round of buy side liquidity along with this and this highs. That looks quite well, not gonna lie. So session is about to open. New York is about to open. And we have either the opportunity to, as an example, let's suppose price actually creates this fair value gap that it's kind of creating right now. With session, we just could trade that, but I don't really like trading based on, I don't like just placing a trade based only on the 1-minute, although it's not based only on the 1-minute, of course, we already know that. But it's just that I prefer having a 5-minute fair value gap, which could be created here as well, right? We do have that fair value gap that in 4 minutes and something could be created. For now, there's really not much that we can do, because well, the only fair value gap that we had was was mitigated, and now this wasn't, well, just didn't generate it. And well, being fully honest, there's really not much that I can do. At least not right now, right? Gonna have to wait and see what price does if it actually reaches this level, this fair value gap, which will be ideal, right? This is a tiny fair value gap, which could work out, you know, but just better to wait for something a little bit clearer than that. Also, what we could see is, as this is New York's open, we could see manipulation, taking a high, mitigation of a phase one fair value gap, and then displacement to try and enter and take advantage of the bearish move of the session. That's my ideal scenario right now. But ideal doesn't mean that will happen, so yeah. Okay, there's really not much that I can do right now. I'm just gonna there's no fair value gap in the 5. The only fair value gap from phase 1 that has been mitigated is this one. The 15 didn't create any, so it's really not much that I can do. And what I'll have to do is wait to see if price mitigates this and what happens in the lower time frames. And on the other hand, just wait for session to create a new fair value gap on the 5 to then look for the lower time frame entries. That's the only thing that I can do for now. So yeah, I'm gonna leave the video here for now, and we'll come back in a couple of minutes. There's really not much to update you about, but I wanted to talk, right? So you understand what's going on, and maybe it's worth later on. Right now, as you can see, price is really not moving that much. It's going higher, definitely. Not creating fair value gaps in the 5-minute, which will be where we could take entries if the 5-minute created the fair value gaps and then the lower time frames created the fair value gaps again. And as you can see, it's going slowly, higher, but slowly. And we could argue that, well, phase 1 got to a fair value gap from pre-New York, mitigated that, and started going higher, right? So as an example, that's the mitigation, price goes higher, there's a mitigation of something here, fair value gap in the 1-minute actually, right there, mitigates that, starts going higher, retracement, goes higher, fair value gap, this could have been an entry, this could have been an entry, this could have been an entry, etc. Right? But it's all based on the 1-minute, in my opinion, potentially against the trend, so it just doesn't really make that much sense for me to be risking money in something like this, right? So still expecting that bearish move, right? It's kind of what I'm expecting. Had a couple of times where price was potentially about to create a fair value gap in the 1-minute. Here failed completely. Here was quite close, but didn't do it. And well, now it's ranged a bit, now potentially causing an impulse, but really nothing that we can use. And yeah, I mean, as you can see, we've had just this through, well, from 8 a.m. sorry. And I actually haven't checked the news, to be fully honest. We can check it from here. Events. Yeah, but I have any. Oh, I have one at 11 or at 10:30. Medium news is really not that important. Yeah, I mean, for now, I'm still expecting for that bearish momentum that creates a potential fair value gap to use on the lower time frames. But for now, there's really nothing that we can actually do. Is it 2, nothing, the 3 could have something, 4, nothing. Okay. Yeah, no, for now, there's really nothing that we can do. Just wanted to say that in some cases, we really have nothing, just like now. And there's really not much that we can actually do. Okay, 2 things I want to mention about this, because I wanted to talk about it. And thing is, the next, we're getting somewhat of an impulse now, right? This candle is about to close, the next one is going to open, potentially creating a fair value gap in here. But the thing is that price now, as an example, has gone aggressively lower, swept a low, couple of lows to be fair, and could potentially just continue higher, right? The fair value gap wasn't even created, so there's nothing that we're actually going to be able to do. But as an example, what I was a little bit afraid of is that if price would have done something like this, where it just would have aggressively gone lower, taken lots of lows, it could have then just continued higher instead of maybe using somewhat of a fair value gap that could have been created. Which lately I've been realizing that, as an example, if something like this happened, where I will look my entry for is this, right? Because it has swept a lot of buy side liquidity on this, then the sell side liquidity is being swept above this high due to the fact that it broke so many lows. So now we have the clear move without, well, theoretically without retail traders participating on it, right? Which would have been fine to see, but well, fair value gap was taken, well, not taken, just not created at all. Tiny strips on liquidity, nothing really that important. But yeah, that's really all that I can say about it for now. We'll see what happens with this high. If that high is taken, then we see displacement. We could try and sell. To buy, again, I need the 5-minute fair value gap, and really there's not much that I can do about it. I think I'm actually going to take advantage of the time right now and go out, because I have to do some shopping. I don't think it's called shopping, some chores maybe. And yeah, because this price is just moving really slowly, and I prefer to see the 5-minute fair value gap here and then look for the 1-minute entry, which might not get here, but well, we'll see. All right, it's a bit noisy outside, so hopefully it's outside of my mic's range, but we're getting this in a minute or so, which I'll be taking advantage of with a little bit of a low risk, to be fully honest. And the stop loss above this high, so 447, 447, and it's a risky sell due to the fact that, again, in my opinion, it has swept the low, so it could potentially just continue higher now, right? And I'm actually trading positions orders, apply to all position orders, okay. And yeah, it's the only concern that I have, because I see this a little bit more likely taking this high displacement that we can find the fair value gaps in, mitigation of that, lower prices, right? Ideally, I want to see that. This trade is a risky trade, well, that I like. I'm not gonna lie, it's not a bad trade completely, but yeah, I don't really have much to stand for it. And take profit will be below this low. Well, we're getting 5 hours out of it. We'll see how this one turns out. I'm gonna put an alert up here. I guess this is today. Well, today, no, not today. The entire week, I think I'm gonna be trading just on demo. Well, we're paper trading, better said. But yeah, just wanted to mention that. We'll discuss the reasoning behind the trade later. I mean, I've already mentioned a couple of things about this. The fair value gap in here and all, and the random buy side liquidity is pretty much the reasoning. But we'll get into more details later. Yeah. Now we'll see how this one turns out. I'm gonna put an alert here when it's on 1 hour to know if it, and this is the stop. I'll be back in a couple minutes. The trade for now is running fine. The 1 hour alert was triggered a bit ago, and yeah, target's down here. I think I'm gonna head out. We are getting, or about to get, a 5-minute fair value gap, which could be interested to see. And if the 1 minute was to create an entry in there, we'll likely take advantage of it. But yeah, it'll need a minute or so. I just wanted to mention that. Alright, as you can see, the entry ended up failing, which is kind of what I said could happen, just a sweep on liquidity to continue higher. And let me put something, just a flag, tiny flag. Where's this? In there, right there. And let's not sync it. Okay, good thing though, he actually created a fair value gap in the 5-minute, which is definitely good. Problem will be that it could change the trend, definitely. Now that it has happened, now that this has happened, sweep lower, sweep higher, potential continuation lower. But if it gives me a fair value gap in this 5-minute fair value gap, then I'd be definitely interested on taking advantage of that, right? 5-minute FPG, bullish, basically. Okay. On the other hand, can we sell? We can, but I don't really think I would do it with just, as an example, this, right? Just this 1-minute fair value gap. I think I'm just gonna try and follow what has been respected so far. Could be just price respecting this now and continuation lower, but oh, see, this is what bothers me from time to time. In some cases, you don't really have a clean image of what's going on, and then you get something like this, which price is respecting liquidity sweeps, swept lower, swept higher. Yeah, it's gonna be complicated. I could wait for a 5-minute fair value gap and then the 1-minute entry, but I think at that point we're going to be late into the potential move, so it's gonna be tricky. Not gonna lie, it didn't actually sweep, not sweep. It didn't actually mitigate the BOI just yet, so do keep that in mind. I'm very interested in selling from this point. I am not going to lie, but I feel at the same time like I'm forcing a reversal, which is of course not ideal. 15 has nothing, 5 has just a fair value gap. I mean, it makes sense for price to continue higher, right? But at the same time, we do have confidence to believe it could go lower, right? I'm gonna take that one, but being fully honest, this is not something that I will. Oh, where's the stop loss? Yeah, okay. Oh, I'm gonna be risking more than 0.5. But being honest, this is not a trade I will take on a challenge or funded account. I don't really think I would have traded this one either, to be fair. But this is just a tricky trade, honestly, a tricky trade. I want to buy, but if this created a fair value gap, I can't really buy this. I don't know. I just don't like the way it has been generated, at least not for now. I'm more interested in the sell it right now, to be fully honest, due to the fair value gap in the 1, the 5-minute order block, sweep on the liquidity, and all. Yeah, it's just complicated. Now, if this low was taken, displacement, fair value gap, that's my buy, right? That's definitely a buy that I take. But yeah, I need this low to be taken. This is barely mitigating the fair value gap. It just makes no sense for me. But okay, we'll leave it at that for now. Yeah, that's really all that I wanted to show for now. So the entry has worked fine so far. Target was down there, yes. Still expecting that to hold. It's all the way down here. I got 5 on that, 5 hours at 4.6, yeah, somewhat. Because yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. So also, to be fair, we do have a fair value gap here, a bullish fair value gap that could be respected. Not really gonna pay attention to that though, but well, it's there. Just wanted to mention that. And it worked fine, to be fair. It's just, I don't know, I don't really like it, didn't really like it. It's not an entry that I would have taken on a funded or a challenge account, to be fully honest. We did have the 5-minute fair value gap. We have a sweep on liquidity, but it's based on 1 minute and then 1 minute, right? Of course, we still have the 5-minute fair value gap that until this high is taken, it's still valid, right? But it's just would like for it to not go that far. But it's fine. Worked out at least so far. We'll see if it actually reaches down to this low or whatever it actually reaches for. And yeah, I mean, it's a fine trade. I wanted to say that a 5-minute fair value gap was created where we could look for the entry that I was actually more I was a little bit more excited about this entry where we actually do create a 5-minute fair value gap. Price could trade now into it and create a bearish opportunity. And at the same time, well, we could be inside of this trade due to the fact that we have the 5-minute fair value gap. Price aggressively goes higher, fair value gap, and could work out, right? For now, that's really much it. I'm not gonna be trading. I'm likely not gonna be trading for the rest of the day. I will be gonna go outside, and I'll be paying attention on my phone. But I don't think I'm gonna take any other executions, but just allow this one to run as far as it wants to. So just wanted to say that, and if this is an interesting video, well, I might add the resume to it and see how it turns out. Let's put the what's target specifically. 2228 2228 fine. TP. We'll see though. We'll see. Again, if the 1 minute creates a fair value gap after mitigating this, I'm very likely going to take that opportunity if I see it and if I have the time. But besides from that, that's pretty much it. Okay, so it ended up working out pretty well, not gonna lie. It did take a lot of time to actually get to to our target, let's just call it, which was somewhat understandable, kind of. Although, well, this, I have no idea what it was. I don't know if we had news or something. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Let's show the executions with the labels and stuff. Just do this one. So here's the loss that I took. Before that, there's nothing today. Let's pull this closer. Okay. So the loss that we took, right, based on this, a good sell in my opinion, but we did discuss what happened here in my opinion, something that I've seen repeated a lot, which means that later in the future I could identify this as a potential loss, so I could avoid the trade basically, or the potential loss. Then we see the aggression higher, which basically sweeps liquidity, still respects the high, which created the fair value gap in the 5 minute, mitigating the 5 minute order block, mitigating a 1 minute order, fair value gap as well, which creates aggression, fair value gap. That's our entry down there on that low, as you can see, on that point, as you can see, starts going aggressively lower. Retracement, which could have been a little bit complicated to weather, to be fully honest, but what it does is create a 5 minute fair value gap, which creates another opportunity, right? This is the 5 minute fair value gap. Price comes back into it. What is it that we look for? Aggression, displacement in the 1 minute creates that. I entered, as I was on the phone already at this point, I entered basically when I saw it was created and price had basically pushed up to this. Sold, stop loss was above this high, well, basically where this is, right? Along with the stop loss for this one. And that was respected. The high of this was respected anyways. We could have taken even this entry here as well, but that one as an example with the stop loss above would have failed, right? And as you can see, we even have a tiny run on sell side liquidity, buy side liquidity, sorry. And then, well, we have this, which is unexpected, but well, you know, it's not that bad. And so was the entire trade close here? Because I got the alert that the take profit was hit here, right? And I didn't even bother checking the phone, to be honest. And then I realized that on one of the entries I had in place to take profit, and that's when I entered and closed the trade, which as you can see, it closed at a pretty low point, much lower, well, not much, but 99, well, 13 pips extra. I mean, that surely does make a difference. And let me lower this a bit. And yeah, it's just that trade. This is the loss. Yeah, this is the loss. This is the win, basically. Close to a 10%. A little bit less than 10% due to the fact that it's at a 3% already. At a, I don't know how much, 3%, yeah, 3% gain already, or 1.5. I don't know, let's just not get tangled with that. And yeah, that's really pretty much it. I mean, I've said this many times already, but let's just repeat it to have a little bit of a teaching here at the ending. I'll do the resume later. I don't think I'm gonna do that in video though. I'm actually open a big bang. It's gonna be better. What do I like trading, or how do I specifically trade? We'll talk about that. It's a whole video that I want to make and everything, you know, but since we're here, let's just make it. Ideally, I'm gonna have a direction based on what happened through London, right? Based on what happened through London, maybe swap the high, swap the low, and then we see continuation against that move, and creation of fair value gaps with displacement and everything, and we just follow that trend. On other cases, we can have a weekly bias. As an example, I'm expecting a very weekly bias, which today was proven right. Although of course you could just go, but as I think I did talk about it at the beginning of the session, that due to the fact that we have daily fair value gaps somewhere around these areas, right? We could definitely see price trading lower into this to then continue higher, right? So this move here could basically just be a retracement down to that through the beginning of the week to then change the direction and continue bullish, right? So for now, we did have a bearish day, right? We managed to take bearish opportunities, and that's basically it. Why did I look for sells today? Specifically the run and buy side liquidity, but that's what I wanted to explain. So ideally, I want to see price, let's suppose we have a high and we have a low. Well, the level, of course, I'm not going to draw the actual price. So I have that line there, and let's suppose London is this. London took a high. London took previous day's high, or just a high that was pretty important for price. And then we see a huge aggression that generates displacement. So fair value gaps in the 5 that price trades into and then continues lower, right? We could have something like that. So let's suppose this is where we begin the session. What I'm likely going to look for are sells, right? I'm going to look for sells due to the fact that London swept the high and created displacement lower, created fair value gaps to the downside on the 5 minute. So as an example, if I was trading through London in here, I would have looked for the exact same thing to happen, but on the 1 minute time frame, or maybe the 2, the 3, whatever time frame creates it. So not necessarily do I need a run on liquidity on the lower time frames, but if it happens, then great. It's exactly the same with the market shift. If a market shift occurs, then even better. But if it doesn't, then it's not really much of a deal breaker for me. So in there, inside that fair value gap in the 5 minute, I want to see price just basically creating displacement that generates fair value gaps, and that's what I'm selling with the stop loss above. Potentially looking for, well, it could have been this lows. Maybe there was a low here. Maybe this low that we have from a little bit before. So ideally, if the session begins here, right, let's put a marker. Let's actually do it here. If the session begins there, I want to see price running on buy side liquidity and immediately creating displacement to the lower side, right? On the 5 minute that generates fair value gaps. And that's where I'd look for exactly this. The 1 minute to mitigate that, create displacement, entry on market on fair value gaps, right? Stop loss above the 1 minute or above the 5 minute will be much safer, basically, compared to the 1 minute. And that's exactly what happened today. Although, as an example, we could have expected a bullish day due to what happened in London. But as I mentioned earlier in the day, because that high was swept, we could have also expected a bearish day. Since we swept sell side liquidity, now we're going all the way up to buy side liquidity. So now we are likely to retrace down to sell side liquidity. Whether it's this low, just was this low, and this one doesn't really matter. Thing is that I would have aimed for this one, which is what I aimed for, and that ended up working quite well, right? And as I said, the entry up here is not something that I would have taken, but the entry here is definitely something that I would have taken, right? On a funded or a challenge account. And the reason to that is because now we have everything that we look for, or that I look for specifically. Stop loss above this high, although it could have been above that one. And I say that because what is it that we have? The best setup that I look for is run on buy side or sell side liquidity, so run on stops. Price immediately displaces in the 5 minute, so creation of displacement in the 5 minute, maybe the 15 minute can cause it as well. And then price trades inside of that fair value gap, creating fair value gaps in lower time frames, right? So for me, the entry up here was based on the 1 minute, but also on the 5 minutes. So it could have been something that we could have taken on a challenge or funded account, right? But me personally, I just didn't really like it that much. it was looking a bit bullish. I just didn't like it. As I mentioned in the moment, I didn't really like it. Now, on this case, we have a 5-minute, price respecting the 5-minute order block, respecting the 5-minute fair value gap, creating another 5-minute fair value gap that price trades into and creates an entry in the 1 minute, right? We also have a sweep on buy side liquidity here that creates immediate displacement to the downside. You see how it created immediate displacement higher here, but it didn't really sweep anything that we can see on the 5. That's something that also, in my opinion, makes it's not that makes sense. It just feels important that you can see, if you're seeing displacement in the 5, then the high or the low that is swept should be visible from the 5-minute as well, right? It's not that it can just sweep out something on the 1 minute and we're going to count that, right? Because at the end of the day, this high is buy side liquidity, right? This high is buy side liquidity as well, as is this high and this high, right? But the thing is that I prefer to see the high, such as this one, etc., right? So random buy side liquidity, 5-minute creates displacement, price trades into that, creates a 1-minute entry down here and here, right? Both valid entries. I didn't really like this one. I kind of like this one, not gonna lie. Again, I did mention that in my opinion, this was run on sell side, run on buy side, mitigation of something else, and then continuation, right? Then what is it that happens? Price from this 5-minute fair value gap, it creates another 5-minute fair value gap where I looked for the 1-minute entry, which is something that I do think I would have taken on a funded or challenge account, right? It's something that I feel I would have felt a little bit more comfortable with compared to this one, which in my opinion, again, is a little bit more based on the 1-minute fair value gap than the 5, because the 5 is a little bit too low already, right? And that's really pretty much it. This is exactly how I trade every single day. The price, of course, provides us with that. And if you go to last week, I do want to talk about that. Let me actually open up Obsidian for a sec, because I want to show you what happened last week. I might make a video about last week. But yeah, it's a bit complicated. Not a bit complicated, it just takes a lot of time. Monday, I did a video on Monday. Thursday is what I wanted to talk about. No, there was a specific day. Well, let's talk about Monday. Fuck it. It was pretty simple. Monday, look at this. Run on sell side liquidity, immediate displacement in the 5-minute, price trades into that, and then the 1 minute does what? Well, no, the market shift didn't actually happen. Fair value gap that causes the continuation. It's exactly what we have here, just in another way, basically. And that's really pretty much it. I mean, it ended up being a really good video. I thought it was actually going to be a bit boring, so I wasn't actually going to share it. But as you were seeing, it actually turned out quite well. I got a 10% by risking a 1.8, I think, because if you remember correctly, the stop loss on this one was a little bit fucked, basically. Well, it is what it is. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I wanted to mention that we're getting a lot of subs lately on YouTube, which I'm pretty happy about. And I want to get to a 500, I think it is, that I need to have the community option where I can post charts and stuff like that, so we can do something through the session, because I would do it through my Telegram, but there's not much people in it anymore, and as it has been quite inactive, I don't really think people will be there that much. But yeah, just wanted to say thanks to that, welcome, and yeah, feel free to leave any kind of comments, questions, or recommendations, suggestions, whatever you want to say. Just leave it in the comments. And that's all I wanted to say, show, and talk about in this video. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you took something away from it. And I'll be seeing you on to the next one.